Right. So let me share my screen here. Okay, so color temperature. So on your cameras, you all have that, you all have a white balance setting, right? On your cameras. Now, even those of you using your phones, I noticed on the Lightroom app that you also have color balance uh, capabilities to control your color balance. Okay, so we're just going to go over what some of those things are, and then we'll go over color space. Okay, so we haven't seen, so you all haven't seen this PowerPoint yet, but we've probably talked about some of these aspects. So direct sunlight is pretty self-explanatory, right? It's the sun directly hitting the face. It's the image on the left is an image of direct sunlight. Okay, and you see what happens when the sun is up high in the sky, right? What's happening to her skin? What's you know, you see what's going on, right? It's hard. It's harsh light. It's not necessarily saying don't use it or whatever, but just understand that that's the look that it has. And typically direct sunlight is supposed to be like color balance or neutral, but sometimes most times it's a little on the warm side. Okay, you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's open shade. So what happens in open shade? Can somebody tell me?
I would think it would be a little darker, so you would get a lot bigger grains in your file.
No, not necessarily, because you know, here's an example of direct sunlight on the left and open shade on the right.
Oh, so then maybe you get harder shadows and
you
light.
get softer shadows.
Okay.
Look at the shadow here. This is a hard shadow, right?
Correct.
And look how it's soft over here. So it's softening up, okay? And that's the quality of light. But like when I want to like talk about the color temperature, right? The color. Well, what happens is it gets cooler, right? It gets cooler. There's more blue in the light than there is yellow, right? So here's another example. It's a little bit on the cool side. Now that doesn't mean you can't go in Lightroom, Photoshop, and warm it up. Of course you can, but it's not going to look like direct sunlight because it's not a hard light. What happens is it softens in open shade. So if you're under a tree or if you're under an awning or anything that's casting a shadow, a building, anything like that, and you're photographing in that space, that quality of light is soft and the light is typically cooler. Now, think about this too. If this little girl was shot under a tree that was creating the open shade, what do you think would happen to the color? Let's say it's a tree and full leaves and everything.
Would it cool it down?
It would probably cool it down, but what else? How else might it affect it?
Dapple lighting.
Well, yeah, dappled lighting, but we're talking about color.
You might get like a green highlight from the
Exactly.
green leaves.
A cast. You'll get a green cast, right? If your camera is set to auto white balance, though, chances are it's going to kind of correct that out. And you know, our eyes are auto white balance, right? So like you're looking at me, or like even the camera in my computer is auto white balance. You're looking at me right now, and I have my desk lamp at the color balance, like the neutral. But if I switch it to, you know, tungsten, I look way more orange, right? But your eyes wouldn't have told you how orange I looked in the beginning if I had started off this way, right? So
so you've talked about your cool light before. What is it used for? May I ask?
This light?
Yeah, the one that you can change the tones.
Just zooming. Just for the camera, for zoom, for class.
Oh, cool.
It's off otherwise. I don't like it blasting me in the face, but makes it easier to see, I think. All right, let's move on. So that's open shade. Now, tungsten light, this is what we talked about a second ago. This is a tungsten. This is not a tungsten light, technically. It's an LED light, but it's whatever's inside of it. makes it orange. But you all have seen a tungsten light bulb before in your lives, right? They're actually becoming more and more rare, because because those low energy lights, LED lights and things like that. Yeah, they're not tungsten anymore. But tungsten bulbs, we've seen them in the past. They're those regular light bulbs that put off a real orange light. You usually have them in your like a lamp or something like that, right? Shop lights, you know, those clamp shop lights, usually those are tungsten clamp lights. Okay, cool. Let's move on. On camera flash, so strobe. So the strobe on an on camera flash is technically supposed to be color balance. It's supposed to be a neutral color. It's not supposed to cast any color. The older the strobes get, though, they tend to start warming up or whatever. You know, this I'm pointing at the screen. This one in particular, that's like on your camera. This piece of plastic covers where the strobe is, and so like on some of my lighting gear, right, I have like soft boxes. Well, the material of the soft boxes, as they get older, they start to deteriorate a little bit, and they end up being a little bit warmer. But in normal like conversation, when talking about it, you usually talk about the strobe or on camera flashes being relatively color balanced. Okay. All right, sodium vapor. Have you anybody ever seen lights like this anywhere?
Oh, right. I mean, LA.
Yeah, I mean, probably right outside your street,
Oh, you have that too.
right? These are street lights. When you're driving around or when you're walking around tonight, look at your street lights, see what color they are. They're probably this color. Okay, so sodium vapor lights is like street lights. Okay, obviously this is an extreme example of it. Have any of you like driven through an industrial area at night?
Yes.
Have you seen it start, the sky glows like this? If I know that like in Pomona, like from the 71 freeway in Pomona, if you look out, you'll see the sky is totally a different color because of because of big swaths of areas with these lights. It ends up lighting the sky, and it lights up the atmosphere. Hey, Lorenzo, I keep having to mute you. Can you keep yourself mute?
Yeah, it's muted.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so it's like big swaths of areas that have these lights. It's going to change the atmosphere of the area. So definitely take a look at the night sky, and see if you can sort of locate where these colors are. It's pretty incredible, especially on nights that, you know, probably less and less now because of we're coming up to summer, but like especially in the winter when there's like haze or fog or anything like that in the sky, you really start to see this stuff light up. Okay, so that's a sodium vapor light. All right, mercury vapor. Have you all seen any examples of this anywhere? This is that green blue light.
It reminds me of like going to a college a long time ago and like near the pottery ceramics class. I don't know why.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the thing about mercury vapor lights too is that they take a while to turn on. They warm up, you
And
know?
don't they buzz too?
Some of them, yeah, I do. I think they do. So it's usually like it's like a similar kind of vibe as a sodium vapor light as far as like nighttime goes, but it's a green blue color light. Okay, that's a mercury vapor. Now, you all seen a fluorescent light before, right? Usually the example would be in the classroom. We would all look up and we'd have fluorescent lights. Okay, so those long tubes. All right, and then there's obviously, now I haven't updated this PowerPoint, but LED lights, right? LED lights, which can be any color, right? Fluorescent, you could have different kinds of fluorescent tubes. You've all seen like signage with fluorescent lights and things like that. So yeah, you can, the tubes can be different colors, so they end up being different colors, but like a normal fluorescent light would be this sort of green color. Okay, now here's some examples. So this is a pretty famous photograph by oh my god, teaches at Yale, Philip Lorca de Corsia. Gosh, it's a photograph by Philip Lorca de Corsia in a series called Hustlers. And you know, looking at this photo, I've always sort of tried to figure out the light source on this man. Right, it's pretty insane. So my gut tells me it's some kind of either strobe or something, but you know, he's very controlled with it, or something some kind of reflection off of a mirror or glass or something like that to give it just that real nice shape of light around this person's head. But also, I like to point out that in the background, right? What kind of light is that?
That would be your fluorescence, right?
Those would be your fluorescent lights, and then the sign is probably, those are probably fluorescent lights, you know, with behind the signage, right? And then there's one other light source, the sky, right? This time of day, the sun is probably down. So the sky, it's not quite dark yet. So technically this is what we call golden hour. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about what golden hour is in photography. Golden hour is not when your sun is real low and it's real directional and it's a real warm light. That's what you would think, right? Golden hour is actually, and it's not even an hour, but it's when the sun goes all the way down, but it's not dark yet. You've all seen that span of time. It's like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
What happens is the sky itself becomes a light source. Does that make sense? The sky, the entire sky becomes one big soft light source. And it's not directional. It just comes from above, just evenly comes down, right? When your sun is really low, but it's still out, it's usually blasting and giving, you know, if you're looking at something, it's usually got a hot highlight side and a dark shadow side because it's very contrasty directional light. When the sun is like this, it's really even. Make sense?
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Try to name off some of the light sources that you see.
Possibly sodium vapor.
Where?
The street lights.
Yeah, to the right of the frame.
Correct.
Okay. What else?
Possibly. You're good, Tomas.
Okay. Probably a mercury vapor light to the left of the frame, right?
I was
That
thinking that
blue-green
or
light?
Yeah.
fluorescent.
Yeah, it's more blue, so I would say it's probably more mercury vapor light, and that's that kind of color. And then, you know, these photos were shot in the 90s, so that could very well be a tungsten light right above this person's head, right? Probably wouldn't be that way now, but maybe back then it might have been, right? But you see 3 different color light sources in one photograph, right?
Yeah.
All right, what do you think?
Definitely fluorescent.
Where do you
Neon
see the
sign. Is
fluorescent
that
light?
a neon sign or anywhere like this, or like around the Coca-Cola? Any of that?
I don't think so. What I think it is it's direct sunlight. It's that low sun in the sky, right? It's not when the sun is all the way down in the sky, but I'm looking at some of this stuff in the foreground and I see a shadow, right? And I don't see a shadow at all on this sign. So that tells me the sun is basically like right behind not right behind the camera, not behind the camera, but to the left of the camera, but really low. And it's got that warm end of the day sunlight or early morning sunlight, depending on which direction this photographer was shooting, right? So it's direct sunlight. But yeah, the sign could probably be a neon or fluorescent sign. All right. It's a weird
There
one.
you go.
Call it out.
Golden hour.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely shot at golden hour. What other light sources do you see?
Fluorescent.
Fluorescent for sure. Anything else?
Mercury?
Where do you see the mercury?
Kind of like in the corner, like the left, that blue.
Yeah, good job. And I think maybe even the phone booth has some kind of mercury vapor light. I've always wondered if that's a mercury vapor light inside the phone booth.
Oh yeah, I see. I think it
What is
is.
that?
Yeah, so for you young ones, the phone booth there used to be these glass cases that you'd go inside and there would be phones in there that you'd put money in. Has anybody not ever seen a phone booth in real life like this?
I just saw it for like when Superman was changing into his costume or something.
So you've never seen one in real life?
No, just in cartoons.
Wow. Paulina, that probably means you too, huh?
Yeah, I haven't seen one either.
Wow, cool.
Go inside of one of those at like 115 degrees. It's like an oven.
Yeah, yeah. I heard that there's like 2 of these left in New York City somewhere, and they
What?
call out for free. Yeah, you can use them for free. But I don't know.
I think in Mount Sac there's like a phone too, like outside
Yeah,
where you feel like yeah, but I don't
yeah,
think anyone
payphone.
uses it. It's just there
Yeah, yeah. There's payphones. Yeah, for sure.
relics of the past.
All right, here we go. Ooh, bad resolution. Sorry. What do you see?
Neon light.
Yeah, it's probably neon light. Either neon light or fluorescent lights, right? Maybe a lot of neon for that space, but who knows? Is that the only light you see?
Is there some sodium vapor from like the surrounding area?
Yeah,
Or
this is what I'm
even
talking about.
moonlight?
No, I would say it's sodium vapor, that orange. Remember that I talked about, that atmospheric orange light that happens? That's what happens when you got a lot of when you're like near an industrial area with a lot of sodium vapor lights. The sky turns that color. Now you're thinking about it, you've probably seen it all the time and never paid attention to it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I always
Here
thought
we
it
go.
was cool, but I didn't know that it was from lighting. It's just
Yep. Okay, here's another one. What do you think? What's the light source?
strobe.
Yeah, strobe, exactly. On camera flash, right? All right, here we go.
Is that direct sunlight?
Golden
Yeah, I
hour.
think it is. I think it is at the end of the day, right? How can I tell that it's the end of the day?
That gold orange look.
Okay, yep, perfect. And what else?
That shadow very like
Yeah,
parallel, not parallel, but like really even with the phone.
yeah, it's really long, right? So it tells you that the sun is low and it's pushing the shadow that way.
Mercury?
Yep, that's exactly a mercury vapor light. Now you've all seen that kind of light somewhere, right? I think basketball courts, like at night, have mercury vapor lights too.
I think you're right.
And then that sun has already set. Chances are it's a pretty quick shutter, right? So that I mean, I don't know that this photographer was hand holding this camera, but we can kind of assume because it's a little crooked and stuff, but who knows?
Strobe.
Strobe, exactly.
I'm gonna say use the daylight.
Like early morning.
What do we call this? What do we call this?
Is this golden hour, but in the morning?
Sure. Could be, yeah. I don't know what time of day, which golden hour, right? We have 2 every day. Okay.
Do they look different in your experience, like golden hour at night and golden hour in the morning?
Shoot, I haven't been awake for a golden hour in the morning in a long time. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think so. But in my experience, the morning golden hours, especially around here, you really have a lot of like atmosphere, like haze, like fog or something like that you have to deal with. Whereas like by the end of the day, it really burns off and burns away, and it's less atmospheric in my experience. How about somebody who hasn't answered? Paulina or Jeffrey or Tomasa?
Is this a tungsten?
Yep, tungsten, exactly. Good job. It's warm, right? It's an interior space. It's warm.
It looks like it could be mercury vapor.
Yep, mercury vapor, maybe. What else?
I have a question real quick.
Hmm.
Does the building over there on the right side that's emitting light, does that also contribute as like a light source, or?
Well, it's a light. It's a light. It's not lighting the person, right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because I kind of just see the light hitting on the table, and I
Yeah.
kind of see like that's a part of the interaction I think he's trying to capture. So
Right. It's not lighting the person, definitely, but I am trying to identify. I'm trying to get you guys to identify the types of light sources just in the photograph at all. So, what kind of light do you think is inside that building? Look at the color.
really, what was the one that was called? I forgot the name of it, but you said it was like the one with the light bulb.
Yep, tungsten.
Yeah, tungsten. There you go.
Okay, and then what else?
Is there a strobe? I see like that direct.
Could be. Yeah. That this has always been my I've always wondered about this series. If there's strobes, it's the same photographer as the very first photo of that man in the parking lot at the supermarket. It's that same kind of feel, right? Like that like crisp strobe looking light on the face, but it would have to be a very controlled strobe because strobes spread. So like there's no spread on this. It's just literally on the face. So I've always wondered how he did this. Yeah, and that mercury vapor light, like I think Paulina said, like that blue green that we're getting, right? But there's one more light.
Is that like a sodium vapor in like the left side?
Yeah, I know, on the
the
street,
flare.
right? Yep,
Yeah.
exactly, that flare. Good job. All right.
Looks like a strobe, or maybe they used a reflector.
Maybe, I think this is I think it's a reflection off of like in downtown or in New York. Obviously, this photo was taken in New York. The direct sun bouncing off of the buildings. If any of you ever go to downtown LA towards the end of the day, look at the reflections from the glass on the buildings, and especially when they start hitting the ground and stuff. If you're shooting and you expose for the exposure of the reflections, not the ambient exposure around, but just the exposure on the reflections, you'll start to see that you're really you be able to really isolate what's inside those reflections, like the subjects that are inside those reflections. Okay. Definitely start watching that light. Watch that light, watch that color. Does anybody live in La Puente?
I grew up in La Puente, Holmes.
All right. La Puente, for whatever reason, man, every time that I've been in La Puente towards the end of the day, that light, that gold light, just makes everything magical. In every direction that you turn in La Puente, it's magical at the end of the day. And I don't know if that's like just specific to La Puente or what, but it's really something. It's really beautiful. Okay, and I mean, this is for a lot of places too. You know, like I grew up in the Inland Empire, and yeah, our end of the day light is pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. So this just happens to be downtown LA, or I'm sorry, New York, and light bouncing off of the buildings. Yes.
So you like made a light bulb go off in my head. You said to like meter on the reflection. So can I point down at what I want, like a reflection with my camera, and meter it, and then point somewhere else to get? Okay.
But see, here's the thing. If you, okay, like let's say you metered where this man was, and then you turn your camera and pointed it at something that's not in that reflection, then
Like
you see that,
shoulder.
yeah, you see all this is dark.
Or his left shoulder,
Yeah,
right
well, it's the
hand.
same, but you see that how dark it is. So if you metered for here and then pointed at something that's not at this exact exposure, well, then you're going to just take a really dark photo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not possible, or maybe it is, but just I have to play around a lot.
Yeah, and that's what happens with these sort of like contrasty isolated lights. You can really start to, just in lighting, isolate things or build that visual hierarchy that we've talked about, right? Tell our viewers where to look, right? You know, it's daytime still, so chances are there's some stuff going on over here, whatever it is, cars, buildings, whatever. But because just the way that Philip Lorca de Corsa exposed this image, well, all of a sudden he's isolated just this man, right? In a city. This is a trick question.
Is it like tungsten?
So this is constant lights. So it's not a strobe, but what it is whatever the light sources are, they probably have gels, like plastic colored gels that go over the lights to change the color of the lights. You know, I like to pull this one out because it's sort of, to me, the blue green is mimicking the mercury vapor lights, and something about that red looks like a stoplight or brake lights to me, right? And whatever the theme of this ridiculous photo is. But you know, you see that now you're mixing color light sources, and you could go on Amazon and get a pack of these gels. Like they sell them in packs. I don't know how much they cost, but you know, they're 12 inches by 12-inch squares. And you could gel your lights. Now, I would say definitely if you're using lights that are hot, you know, work lights or anything like that, desk lamps and things like that, and you want to put a gel in it, that's totally cool. But just keep in mind that it gets hot and those things are plastic and they will melt. Okay, so these are gels.
Yeah, I can see that becoming dangerous.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. What do you think?
Tungsten.
Tungsten, yeah. Is that it? I don't know. Did somebody just say something?
Sodium vapor?
Where do you see that?
Like outside on the left of the house, like if there was a street light.
Yeah, totally right. Just a hint of detail on this image, and that's enough detail, right?
Yeah.
What about on the right? What do you all think about that?
Either it's the moon or like a
Yeah, I
Mercury
definitely,
lighting.
I definitely think it's the moon. I think it's the moon because if it was Mercury, then it would be like a green,
I didn't
more
have a
green.
greener.
Yeah, but it could be the way that he's balanced out this photo or something. Who knows? But yeah,
I
interesting,
think
right?
it's the moon just by the angle. That's
Yeah,
like kind of high up there.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's cool, right? You know, you look at this photo and you just think it's the one light. That, you know, obviously the one light is all that's important, right? But if you really stop and sort of take this photo in, it is extremely important that we have a little bit of detail on this side, right? We have, with just this amount of detail, we see maybe two cars. We see the end of the house. We see some of these like these power lines, right, coming through. Just a hint of detail, and then on the right side, now we've got, because of the moon and the light source back there, now we've got an entire shape to the home, right? And we know that this is a relatively small home, right? We have just a bit of fence, another structure back here. It becomes a lot more complicated. If he had just taken a picture of just the window, well, then everything going black, well, that's not as interesting, right?
Are they driving at this time too?
Yeah, it's
And it looks like
this
it.
photographer. His name is Todd Hito, and it's like a whole series of photos that he's done from inside of his car. And usually he'll shoot through his windows or something like that, and you just have this incredible atmosphere, like fogginess through his windows and stuff. All right, last one. Any guesses?
A strobe.
Yeah,
So that
it's a strobe of a tungsten light, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see, especially with strobes, you can see like this hot highlight right here, right in the center, right? This is a real big indicator that it's a strobe. Also, the way the light is hotter in the front and falls off darker towards the back, right? And it's hard light. It's a hard strobe, and it's fully frontal from the camera. So yeah, I always throw this one in, and it's a pretty famous photograph by William Eggleston. It's really great.
and our black lights on because that right looks like it could be a black light, and that center one could be a black light, and then there's like a glowing picture off to the right.
I doubt it. I think this is like early 70s. I mean, I guess that's possible, but I doubt it. I think it's just some stuff hanging in a completely red room. Even the bulb, even that bulb is painted red or something, right? It's a red bulb. It's not
Yeah, that's
your
what.
normal tungsten.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's color temperature, okay? So now we're going to talk about color space. We're going to talk about 4 color spaces in particular. All right. So sRGB, all your digital files have a color space assigned to them. Okay. Now sRGB was developed for monitors, printers, and the internet and things like that. It's a very small color space, but it's the one that we probably mostly use because it is so small, and we can sort of everybody's monitor, everybody's phone, everybody's little printers at home, they can all render sRGB colors. Okay, and you see, like, in the whole spectrum of colors, you can see where the sRGB colors lie. Everybody see this triangle right here? That's about the size of the sRGB color space. Okay, again, this is the color space that we use. It's still an RGB color space, a red, green, blue color space. And it's what we use mostly. It's tiny though. Now, in comparison to Adobe RGB 1998, you can see that Adobe RGB 1998, especially in the greens, right, and in the blues, we're able to render a lot more colors. Now, Adobe RGB 1998 is the color space that we would be using if we were in the classroom and we were printing on those really awesome inkjet printers in the back of the classroom. We'd be using the Adobe RGB 1998 color space, and that will render you a lot of colors. Okay, so it's a big color space. It's what we use for printing, for like reproduction that's really, you know, precise. Okay, now it's not the largest color space, but I'll tell you from my personal experience, there's this color space that's even larger that I don't necessarily use in my own work because there's no printers that are able to even render those colors. So Adobe RGB is the big one. I use that first, right? So when I'm like processing out my photos from Lightroom, I make them Adobe RGB 1998. And then as I finish working on my photos, and let's say I want to post it to Instagram, then I convert it to sRGB. But what I don't do is start from sRGB and try to convert it to Adobe RGB. Because if you start from sRGB, then you already have a small amount of colors. You're not going to gain more colors by making it bigger. It's like if you had two different size cups, one big and one small, and you fill the small one up with water. Well, if you decide that you want to use the bigger cup and you pour the water into the bigger cup, you're not getting any more water by putting it in the bigger cup. You just have a bigger container. Does that make sense to everybody, that analogy?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So so you'll want to start with Adobe RGB 1998. You know, I'm sorry again, you know, circumstances are preventing us from making prints, but we would be working right now and solely in Adobe RGB 1998. And then later you would be able to convert those Adobe 1998 files into sRGB files for, you know, for whatever your purposes are. You know, also, like, you have to assume like everybody's phone is different. Everybody's, you know, all these iPads are different. Like everybody's home monitors are different. If you view stuff on a TV, it's different. Has anybody ever seen a movie on TV that the color's like way off? Right? Maybe some of your TVs at home, the colors might be way off. People look green or blue or whatever. Yeah, so that's not necessarily to do with the color space, but it has to do with calibration. Well, those monitors everybody's monitor is calibrated differently, right? So, you know, just keep that in mind when you're working on these files. Yeah. Let's move on. So big color space, Adobe RGB 1998. Then you drop back down to sRGB when you're done and you're ready to post these things to the internet or whatnot. Okay, ProPhoto. Now, ProPhoto is a massive color space. If you look at the spectrum, it's got more colors than there is even that we could visually see. Isn't that crazy to sort of think about? Like it interprets colors that we can't even see. Now, you're going to want to use this color space only if your camera shoots a 14 or 16-bit, but your file needs to be in a 16-bit file. We're not doing 16-bit. We don't do a 16-bit at Mount SAC because those computers are not able to handle files that are 16-bit. So I always find it like a little bit pointless to talk about this color space. But just know that there's a color space even larger than Adobe. You can see where the Adobe color space ends, right? That spectrum. And then you come here and you've got colors outside of the visual spectrum, what we can see. Okay. And then lastly, we have CMYK, which is a completely different kind of color space. Now, Adobe, sRGB, and ProPhoto are all RGB spaces. CMYK, that stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. These colors, they're a subtractive color. So that means when you subtract these colors, you get black. Okay. With ProPhoto, it's the other way. It's additive color space, or sRGB, or those are additives. So you can see on this spectrum again, you see where ProPhoto falls out. You see where Adobe RGB 1998 exists, and you can see CMYK is somewhere between the sRGB and our, Adobe RGB. Now, it's a completely different color space. And if you use it, like say for Instagram or something, your color is going to be wrong. It's going to look strange. And that the reason for that is that CMYK, we use that for like printing presses or presses for the most part. Anything that's like reproduced in mass, right? Do you, Anthony, do you use CMYK when you're doing your prints for your business?
No, and I was actually going to ask you, my printer has CMYK in it, but I still use I mean, not sRGB, I use Adobe 1998.
Yeah. What kind of printer do you have? You have an inkjet printer?
I have a Epson F2100, which is a inkjet. It's a very robust inkjet that prints on fabric.
Okay.
But I have used, and I have been a graphic designer for an offset printer where they do use CMYK, and we have to go out there and check dots with loops and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
So what he's talking about is the offset printing. It's a printing press. It's you know, it's just a completely different model, a different kind of printing. But inkjet printers are RGB printers. So you would always use an Adobe RGB space. Now, I'm just throwing the CMYK out there, but I'll tell you that the only time I've ever had to use CMYK is when I've been printing books. Okay. And even then, like a lot of the book publishing companies, they'll convert it for you. Okay. But just know that this other color space is out there. And if your photo's in CMYK, then chances are your photo's not the correct color space that you need it to be in.
So why are the colors so, is that what the colors look like in CMYK?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, because I'm going to say that looks like not even, there's no red anywhere. There's no like bright colors.
Oh, in this model?
Yeah.
Yeah, just, I mean, just imagine that spectrum looks like that.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because that's not right at all.
No, that's not the kind of color. It's just showing you the spectrum. So just imagine it's green, blue, and red. And this is where the CMYK sort of what it encompasses. Okay.
Yeah, German. I understand.
Okay, cool. So we got that done. Any questions? Any other questions from anybody? Now, how do we set that? Now, let's see here. Lightroom. Where are you, Lightroom? One second. Lightroom is not wanting to hang out with us.
You got a pretty strong computer to have all that stuff open and
yeah,
okay.
It's all right. It's giving me some problems right now, though. All right, here we go. All right, so have we talked about the preferences in your Lightroom?
No, not yet.
Okay, so let's say, for example, sorry, this is from a demo from UCI demo. I wanted to show you all this color photo, right? Not that one, this one. Okay, let's say I open this up in Photoshop. If you haven't changed your external editing preferences, it's actually defaults on Lightroom Classic. It defaults to Pro Photo, which is that color space that I strongly recommend you don't use, okay? Because your files are not in 16-bit files. So open up your preferences by going to Lightroom Classic and then Preferences up here and find the External Editing tab. Now, it doesn't look like this. It right here, the color space, it reverts it to the ProPhoto RGB color space. So I changed mine to Adobe, and I believe it also puts you at 16-bit. So I don't use 16-bit, I use 8-bit, okay? 300 DPI is the resolution and no compression, okay? This is for if you're using another external editor, which I don't use anything other than Photoshop. Right here, edit in Photoshop CC, okay? And once you change those, all you have to do is close. Now, what that means is if I'm gonna open this file up in Photoshop, all I have to do is hit Command E on my keyboard. I don't know what it is on PC. Hit Edit, render using Lightroom. And that means when I open up my file, I can go over here to Edit. I'm in Photoshop now, and I can go to Convert to Profile, and I can see the profile source space. The profile currently is at Adobe RGB 1998, right? I can change it, destination space, to sRGB. I don't want to do that yet. I want to work on my file, and I want to save it with the most colors possible, right? This photo has some bright reds, some blues, and some yellows, and some skin tone, right? So there's a lot going on here for as far as color goes. That's why I chose this file, okay? So I'm gonna cancel out of there. Now, if that's how you would convert it, if we wanted to convert it, I'm not gonna convert it right now, but that's how you would do that, okay? So a couple things I wanted to go over. So when this is a high resolution scan of a color negative, but you can see up here at the top, the color negative was a little bit damaged, right? You all see that? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna teach you all, and sorry if this is review for some of you, but I'm gonna teach you how to use the clone stamp. So over here on the left side, you have your tools, and you find this one called clone stamp, okay? It's S on your keyboard. What it does is, essentially, if you basically take an area, you sample that area, and it's like copy and paste. So I'm gonna, by holding down Option on my keyboard, you see that my cursor turns into a target. You all see that? Yeah. Or is it too small? Okay. Hold down the cursor. When it looks like a target, click. Now it's sampled that area, and now I can come over here, and you can see even where I start to float over, you can see, oh, sorry, let me turn my, it should all be at 100% up here, flow and opacity. So I'm gonna sample this area, and I'm gonna come over here, and you can see, right? I haven't clicked yet, but you can just get a preview of what it looks like. So if I click down, I can see that it's starting to remove that. I can do it again, click down, start to remove it, or not remove it, but paste that area right over the top. Now I sample this area. I can just continue to click, and I can get rid of all that. You'll see that?
Yeah.
One more time. I don't know why that's not going away. Okay, well, we'll have to work on that in a second. And then come over here, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Now you wanna be careful, right? You can already start to see it starting to mess up a little bit. So you need to be careful about which areas you're sampling from to make it look natural, right? This is how you can remove some pimples or any blemishes off of portraits. If you've shot a photo of your mom and she hates it, you can start to do some skin cleanup. Let me see what's going on with this.
Oh, by the way, the command to edit in Photoshop from Lightroom is
is what? I think you muted yourself.
Oh, yeah. No, it's because the program opened up. I said in Lightroom, Control E opens up the image in Photoshop, but you can't be in print. You have to be in the developer library on a single photo.
Yeah, that's a good point. Can't be in print. You can't be making contact sheets. All right, so yeah, that's how you would remove things. Now, like, I would never want to remove, this is my nephew, and I would never want to remove his freckles, but just as an example, option, command, option, click that target. You can come over here and just, what is happening? Oh, darken, jeez. Okay, blending mode has to be normal. Okay, try it again. Come over here, click and paste it. Come over here, right? If I wanted to remove his freckles, those freckles are cute, so I would never. But you guys get the idea, right?
Yeah.
I can come over here. I saw like a little thing flying off of his hat. Come over here and you can just clean it up that way. Okay? Clean up his hat if you want, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's a clone stamp. Sort of running a little low on time here. So the last thing I want to do is, let's say I've worked on this file, I've got it to where I want it to be. I need to save it, right? I want to save it as this big, large file size, right? So I'd hit, I'll come up here to save as, file, save as. I'd rename it, you know, whatever, you know, I like the acronym WIP, work in progress. So this is Kai work in progress. I keep it as a TIFF, Adobe RGB 1998, it's fine. I'll hit save. And this dialog box comes up, hit OK, and now it saved it. Now I have a nice big file, right? If I look at the file size, but take a look at the file size, it's a 26 by 22, almost 23-inch file. Pretty big, right? Nice file size. That'll make a nice, beautiful, large print. Now, and the resolution is at 300 DPI. Okay, does everybody see that? This part
Yeah.
you'll really want to pay attention to. Okay, so let me get back here. Image mode, I'm sorry, image file size. Okay, that's how you get to file size. Your final assignment, it is required that your file size, and I'm going to check them, be specific. So what I asked for is 14 inches by fall at 150 DPI at sRGB color space. Okay, so how do I make it 14 inches by fall? Anybody have a guess?
What's by fall?
Perfect, thank you for asking. So by fall means I could tell you, hey, I want this to be an 11 by 14 file, right? Especially like this is different because it's a medium format image. So we'll see if it falls into 11 by 14 aspect ratio. But if you shot with a 35mm camera, your photo will never be 11 by 14 unless you crop it, okay? It just does not fit in those dimensions. If you make it 14 inches, it makes it 9 point something, 9.3333 or something like that. If you make it 14 inches on one side, right? Or if you make it 11 inches on one side, then it's not going to be 14 inches on the other. It's going to be bigger than 14 inches. So in this case, is this a vertical or horizontal image?
Vertical.
Vertical. So I'm going to come over here to my height, and I'm going to change my height to 14 inches. So see, when I said 14 inches by fall, it's not a 11 by 14. It's going to be a 14 by 12.18. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So when I say 14, yeah, when I say 14 by fall, I mean 14 inches on the long side by wherever the other side falls. So if it's a vertical image, it's 14 tall. If it's horizontal, it's 14 wide. Does that make sense?
Answered my question. Got it.
Okay, got it. Okay. And then the resolution has to be 150 DPI. Okay. Now, let me reset this. If for some reason you change your height to 14 and it does this, that means that your aspect ratio is not linked up. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that this link right here is activated. Okay. If I activate that link, then I can come over here, 14, and the width will change with it. If I don't have that clicked, and like change it to 14, let's say 10, this doesn't change with it and it stretches it out all weird. Okay, so I'm gonna reset it. Make sure that those are linked together, 14 inches, and the resolution needs to be at 150. Does that make sense? There's 150 dots per inch, pixels per inch, instead of 300. You see that the file, original file size was 153.8 megabytes and it's dropped down now to 11. Way better to deal with. I would rather print a 153.8 megabyte file on the printer because that's more detail. But for our purposes in Canvas, especially in remote working remotely, we want to deal with file sizes that aren't so massive that we can all just kind of deal with, right? Hit OK, and there we go. There's my file. The size is correct now. And the last thing I want to do is I want to convert it from Adobe RGB 1998 to sRGB. Okay, so to do that, I come up here to Edit, and I come here to Convert to Profile. Edit, Convert to Profile. And in Convert to Profile, we get that dialog box that we saw earlier. We have our source space and our destination space. That's basically all we need to worry about. We don't need to worry about this stuff down here. Okay, so I know that it's Adobe RGB 1998. Now, if you click destination space, you see all, especially on my computer, I have all these other different color spaces. None of those matter to me. None of them. All that really matters to me is the Adobe RGB 1998 and the sRGB. Maybe someday I'll have to do the CMYK, our working CMYK right here for printing presses or anything like that. But for the most part, I'm always just converting from Adobe RGB 1998 to sRGB. That's all I ever actually have to do. Okay, so sRGB is already selected. You hit OK. Nothing's going to change. You're not going to see a difference. Okay, you're not going to see a difference, but this makes that color space smaller. Okay, especially because the blues and the greens that are in this photo render within that sRGB color space. So we're not really losing anything by converting it. Okay. Now I can save this. Now, File, Save As. Now, if we look here, we had this Kai Red 001 TIFF. That's the original raw file that we're looking at in Lightroom. This one that says Red 00-edit, that's the one that we've been working on. So when we went from Lightroom to Photoshop, it created a new file, and that's the one we've been working on. All right. And we saved a version of this as the work in progress to make sure that we have backed up what we've been doing. Okay. Now, lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to name it for turning in for class. So what I want you to do is name it your last name, Clark. Your last names aren't Clark, but my last name is Clark, and then color or whatever. Okay. Whatever the assignment is. Right? And I'm going to change it from a TIFF to a JPEG, not JPEG 2000, but JPEG. Okay. And you'll see down here, sRGB is the color space. You hit save. So the dialog box comes up, make sure it says 12 max format options, just keep it at baseline. You hit OK. And now I have what class is this? This is photo 10, but I think this is all happening in photo 24. Hello. Am I tripping? Photo 24, there it is. Color, probably. Okay, so there we go. So now I have the JPEG, which is now, because it's a JPEG, it's compressed. It's now down to 4 megabytes. That edit file, 161 megabytes, right? The original raw file, 484 megabytes. Giant, right? Down to 4 megabytes. That's a much easier file to deal with, but still has plenty of resolution in order to view this on canvas, right? Color space is correct, everything's correct. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so resizing, okay. So Give me a second here. So who's turned in, who's got their contact sheets ready to be looked at? Paulina, do you have yours?
Yeah.
Okay. Anthony, is that a raised hand? You have yours?
Yes.
Thomas?
You already saw mine last week.
Okay, that's right. Tomasa
Yes.
and Jeffrey.
You saw mine last week too.
Beautiful. And then Lorenzo, you
Yeah, I
have
have
them
mine.
posted?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we'll do this. So Jeffrey and Thomas, I'm just gonna look over everybody's contact sheets and breakout rooms. So you guys are good to go unless you have any questions.
All right. See you next week then.
Yeah, make sure you turn in the photo though today. Whatever
Alright.
whatever one you end up choosing, okay?
Okay, no problem.
And then we'll crit first thing next week. Thanks, guys. Okay, so Anthony, Paulina, Lorenzo, and Tomasa, let's I'm gonna give you all, do you want a break, like a 10-minute break?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need a 10-minute break. I just need to go to the restroom. But let's return at 11:25, and then we'll do breakout rooms, and I will look at your contact sheets with you, and then we'll decide on which ones to turn in. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. All right. 10 minutes. 11:25.
Hello?
Right. You guys there?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, 1 second. Cool. One thing, am I still recording? Yes. Okay. One thing I actually forgot to talk to the other guys about, I had to email them. But I will talk to you all and hopefully they watch this, is your final assignment. All right, so I posted it to the Canvas site, but I'm gonna read it to you and then we'll talk about it, okay? So your final assignment is 2 self-portraits, okay? The objective of this assignment is to utilize some of the concepts and techniques learned in this class to create thoughtful self-portraits. By looking at your self-portraits, the viewer must be able to learn something about you. What we learn does not have to be the truth. It can be a fantasy, a phobia, a source of inspiration, profession, favorite activity, or even an abstracted space. Be as creative as possible. You will turn in a contact sheet with a minimum of 12 images per self-portrait. Here are the 2 concepts for your self-portrait. So one is outer space. This can be interpreted as outside your home, outside your bedroom, outside your skin, or even a different planet. Whatever, what can you tell us about yourself in this space? That's outer space, okay? Inner space. This can be interpreted as inside your head, inside your relationship, inside your bedroom, etc. What do you want to reveal about yourself in this inner space? What do you want to conceal? Maybe it's about concealing something in this space. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Or not make sense at all? But
Yeah, makes sense.
I just had a question. Since it's like a self-portrait, do we have to be in it, or is it kind of like the first assignment where I think someone made like their self-portrait out of things?
yeah, I want you to be creative as possible.
Oh, okay.
Does self-portrait mean you have to take the photo? Does self-portrait mean that does it have to be photos? Could it be collages? Like you're doing mixed media stuff in your other class? Could be any number of things. Okay. It needs to be all it is it needs to be creative. Now you'll see when you click the link to the discussions page, you'll see the final photos need to be these specific dimensions: 14 inches by fall by 150 DPI at sRGB. We talked about that earlier. Okay.
Okay.
If you guys get stuck on this, definitely let me know, and I will we can talk about it throughout the week or something. Okay. I really want you to push hard. Get creative. Okay. Don't just go outside and take a picture of yourself outside. It needs to be something more than that.
Okay.
All right. All right. So I'm gonna put you all in breakout rooms, and we'll talk about your contact sheets. Actually, hold on really quick. So who is here? Paulina, let me find your contact sheet. So what was the name of this assignment? Still life, right?
Yeah, still life.
Okay, so let me find Paulina's. Let's see. Okay, Lorenzo, there's yours. And Paulina, there's yours. Anthony, I don't see yours.
Let me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I lied. There it is. And then Lorenzo, I saw yours, right? So who am I missing? Tomasa, do I see yours? Am I missing yours? Let's see. There's yours. 1 second, y'all. All right, so breakout rooms, I'm gonna stop recording now.